Hello, my name is Flo, and today we're going to have a look at the CrescoData platform. I'm currently logged into the CrescoData management portal that allows me to access the different services of the platform. All of the data that is shown here and the services can be accessed by the API as well. So it's possible to build custom screens on top of what's shown here, or even replicate some of the behavior or enhance it. The management portal has a few sections. There's a reporting section on the left-hand side at the top here. This is the screen that we're currently looking at. It provides a high-level overview of what kind of data is being synchronized, how many accounts are being set up over time. We can look at order information, what kind of GMV numbers are being processed, how many orders are being processed, and so on. And the same for product information. So we can see how many products are being updated, how many SKUs are being updated. So this number isn't always the same, as a product might have multiple SKUs within it, and how that changed over time. At the bottom here, we have an admin section, which allows us to set up and maintain users. So we can reset passwords, create new users. Not all users might have access to do this, so that depends on the roles and permissions that have been set up. We have a taxonomy screen, which gives access to the taxonomy database. So this is where we store information of the different channels we're connected to that support taxonomies or offer taxonomies. That includes like categories and attributes and possible values. So an example might be that to list a shoe in Amazon, it has to be in a certain category. You have to specify heel size and potentially other attributes. Those sort of details are all downloaded regularly by the platform and stored in the taxonomy database that can be accessed by the API or is used on our mapping screen as well. If it's accessed by the API, it's possible to build product management screens that are channel specific. So it could be a product onboarding screen for Amazon and for Lazada and so on, where end users are being asked to select the category that a product should be listed in and what kind of attributes are needed in that category with the possible values as well. So this would include what's possible to list inside certain categories, such as the different heel sizes that are available. We also have an export section, and that includes the different exports that have been run. So this includes scheduled exports as well as one-time exports that can be downloaded in CSV or JSON. So we have a look at that in a second. And then at the top here, we have a channel section. So this is where we set up the integrations that the platform supports. So the different marketplaces, digital ad feeds, and e-commerce platforms that have been set up and are available to this account. This is where we also specify the default behavior, so how data should be synchronized, like throttle rates and default mappings, for example. And on the integrations page, we then have an option to permission this, so not all channels are available to all accounts, but also to overwrite the default behavior. So throttle rates can be modified, mappings can be modified to apply to only certain accounts, for example. And finally, we have a services section, and this shows us what connections are actually live at the moment for these different accounts. So Amazon might be shown once as an integration here, but multiple merchants' accounts are using Amazon. So in this particular example here, multiple accounts are actually using Shopify to publish into or to download data from. The integrations and the mapping screens on those we're going to have a look at in a second on the mapping screens and how data can be mapped in our system. But to begin with, we'll have a look at the merchant page, and that's where the accounts are set up that determine how data is synchronized. So what accounts the platform should connect to, where data should be downloaded from, and where data should be published to. So opening one of these accounts, we have a list here on the left-hand side, which is the different sync types. And these sync types are basically telling our platform what kind of data is being synchronized. Underneath, the platform is basically a data synchronization platform. So we're telling our platform to connect to a certain system, and any changes detected on that system will be published to a range of other systems. It's possible to have multiple sources and multiple destinations, and it's also possible to use one of the feeds within another feed, but in principle, we're basically a data synchronization platform, and the different sync types determine what kind of data is being synchronized. So for products, we know that we need title and SKU. For stock, we might only need stock and SKU. Media requires images. Orders requires the GMV and other details as well. So what kind of data is being synchronized is determined by these different sync types. In the middle section here, we have what kind of connections have been set up for this specific account. The blue icon indicates that it's a source, so we get data from the system. The green icon indicates it's a destination, so we send data to that system. So to read this screen completely, we're basically saying we're synchronizing products for this account from Shopify to Google, Shopee, Catch of the Day, and other marketplaces and digital ad feeds in this example. We're doing the same for stock as well, so the list of channels here is now different and also checks multiple channels for information. So it's checking Shopify as well as Lazada for information and sending any updates to currently only Lazada. The other channels have been deactivated. We also have an alerts feed, which is kind of a monitoring feed. So any kind of issues that are raised within the product feed or stock feed are forwarded into this feed, and this allows us to send daily summary emails, but also to provide real-time API feeds into remote systems. So it's possible to send feedback into Shopify in this example to let end users know that a product failed to be published to Shopee or to Google. With the exact error message that has been raised by Shopee. So it's not always necessary to go into the CrescoData management portal to basically see what kind of issues have happened. It's possible to provide that feed into the remote system, into the source system. I mentioned a second ago already, we have a mapping screen which allows us to map source information to the correct information needed on the marketplace. So an example is that in Shopify we might have a size attribute, but sizes on Amazon have to be a specific value, so large, medium, and small, rather than X, M, and S. So this would need to be mapped in case the source system can't be modified, and that would be done on here, where the source systems can be mapped to the different categories. The source categories can be mapped to the different categories on the marketplace. As well as for the attributes and the values underneath those. There's a dedicated demo video just for the mapping screen available online. Having a look at the actual records that have been synchronized through these accounts, we can click on here, and this basically takes us to this syncs section, showing what kind of products in this case have been synchronized. So we have a little over 600 products with more than 8,000 SKUs, and these can be exported. It's also possible to export them on a regular basis, so I can set up an export that runs every day or every hour, which would only include the changes since the last export. So it's possible to get email notifications for products that have been failed to be added to the marketplaces, for example. Can be sent to a range of email addresses as well. And for each of these products, we can have a look at the latest updates and the actual payloads. So this is where we can really do quite a deep dive into the payloads that are being sent around the system. So for each product or for each record, the same applies to orders really. The same 3 stages apply. And the first stage is the last received at, and this is where we can see what the record looked like as it arrived in the system. So this is before mappings, the way it was either sent to us or the way it was available by the API. We can see what it was last mapped to, and this is the CrescoData master format, an internal master format that has a lot of duplication to allow us to have custom behavior specific to certain channels. And we'll look at that in a second as well. And then the final output is basically a destination payload, so where we're preparing the record for each destination. So this could be multiple, just like it is shown here. multiple records are shown, basically. So it's always one source, one Cresco master format, and then depending on how many channels are set up and depending on the rules, we can determine how many channels a certain product goes to. And for each of these, I can have a look at the actual payload. So for Shopify, this was the record that was received. In this record, we can see it has 12 variants. The Cresco master record is then includes a lot of duplication, as I mentioned, with a lot of different data structures. So we have a default data structure that basically determines what attributes will be sent to each connected channels unless they are overwritten. And then we have overrides here where we can change the behavior for a certain channel. So we can say for Shopee, the title should be different, or it should be in a certain sales promotion, or anything else can be changed on a per channel basis. We can jump into the different mapping screens here, so change the behavior for this particular product, change the mapping as the record comes in or as it's being published, but we'll check this in a second. The same 3 stages that we had a look at here, we can also check historically. So this is where you can see how often the product was changed, what was changed, and for each time what the platform did. So depending on the rules, the product update might have been detected once and was sent to a certain channel. The next time, maybe based on rules, it wasn't sent to that channel anymore. So the behavior could change for every update. Looking at one of these updates and comparing it to the previous one, for example, we can see what has changed. So in this particular case, in Shopify, the title was edited, and usually an updated at timestamp follows that. And we can see what that was mapped to, can again do comparisons to the previous payload and what destination records have been published. And some of these failed, we can see here. We can see what the error was that catch raised. So the feed that was uploaded, color is not a valid one. So this is something that should be addressed in the mapping screen. And we can also download the feeds that have been sent. So this is a particular feature for feed-based integrations. Some are API-based integrations where that payload isn't necessarily visible. But in those cases, we can see the destination payload here. So the destination structure, the data that is being prepared is always visible here. And then for some integrations, we're able to download the feed if it's a feed-based upload. There's also a listing page, and that listing page allows us to see what that product would look like in a templated marketplace layout. So what kind of images would be shown. I mentioned a second ago already that a lot of overrides can be done. So the behavior of a single product can be changed depending on a certain channel. And what we can do here is see what that channel version looks like. So the price might be different for a catch of the day. Not all variants might be published to each channel. So there's very detailed behavior that can be adjusted based on rules, and that sort of behavior can be previewed in here. We also have an approval flow that can be added, so this is not active for this account now, but it is possible for products to first be downloaded and prepared within Cresco, but not to be shared to the channel until they're approved within the CrescoData management portal. The same structure really applies for stock and other records, so there's no difference. The platform is kind of agnostic to what data it is synchronizing. So if we go to the order screen, while none of the integrations are currently active, there are some historic alerts records. And these basically show the same kind of structure. So we can, again, export here. We can see each record, and we can check what happened historically and over time. I mentioned a second ago that for each of these records, we can also view the mapping screen. So if we want to have a look at that now, There's two mappings that are done for each of the integrations. So one is the incoming mapping. So as we're translating a record from a foreign system into our system, and then one is the outgoing mapping. So this is where we translate our CrescoData master format into the payload that will be sent to the remote API or feed. So if we have a look at the source-based system first, there's two mapping languages that are available in Cresco. So one is the incoming mapping language and one is the outgoing mapping language. The incoming mapping language is an in-house built mapping language called CML. It stands for Cresco Mapping Language, and outgoing is Mako. So this is a publicly documented and available templating language. And on this mapping screen, we can basically test, based on this particular product, how to change the mapping. So this, again, is available by the API. So it is possible to change mappings via the API, to test mappings via the API. CML is also, while it is YAML format, it's also a represented structure, object structure. So it's easy to override only certain areas of this. And we can basically play around with the different mappings in here. So we can add overrides, we can add certain attributes. It's a list of instructions for each attribute, basically. So I could add a new attribute in here, and I can set it to a fixed value of testing, as an example. This record will now fail the mapping, and this is because we're synchronizing a product record, and the schema has been defined with certain attributes, and the attribute that we're using here is not allowed. So mappings can be changed on a per channel basis, they can be changed on a per account basis, and they can also be changed on a per integration basis. So it is possible to have custom mappings that just apply for this account's Shopify integration, not for any of the other Shopify integrations on the same account, so specific to this merchant. And then the same goes for the Mako language. Mako is basically Python based. So looking at one of these, there's a range of things that can be done, but external APIs can be accessed through here. Any kind of transformation that can be done with Python can basically be done with this Mako templating language as well. So what's relevant for CML, because it's incoming data, it focuses on data structure. So it's important to get the structure of what a variant is, what overrides what, right? Mako is outgoing, so what's more relevant is the templating side of it, which means it could be XML or JSON or different formats. But every record that is being processed will basically be sent through here. Every product update and will be statelessly processed within one of these templates. There's a range of APIs that can be accessed as well. So we have an image API, so that's visible here, where uniqueness can be done to remove duplicate images, and a range of other things. Some of these features are more easily accessible or more in a more structured way accessible through the CML language, because there's default CML features, we call them. So each of these instructions here is a feature. These features can be extended quite easily. So we have a currency conversion feature. There's more features that can be added, and they can connect to different systems as well. To make it easy to maintain these different features and foreign connections. Monitoring and checking for results on a product page. So this allows us to check what happened with this particular product and why a certain update might have failed. It's also possible to check for updates across an account. So to get a holistic overview with what errors have been encountered and doing what actions. So we can see how many mappings have failed, how many order updates have failed, and so on and so on and so on. It's possible to see a detailed list of this as well, but this is specific to responses. So rather than seeing one record for each product, it's possible to see each publishing record. So Shopee would be listed and Lazada for the same product. And this is where we can set up these email alerts that we had mentioned earlier, where I can filter for any errors that have been encountered on the account over the last any kind of time period. and I can export this and basically run a subscription that notifies me of any errors over a given time period. And an email is only sent out if an error has been encountered. So we can set up email notifications that will be sent in real time as soon as any issues have been raised during the data synchronization. That's a quick overview of the CrescoData platform. Thank you very much.